Yeah, I, obviously overheard the things that Chrissy was talking about. And there is one thing that she said that, it jumped out at me and I disagree with. And then there was just a few things that I wanted to add as well. And the one thing that I disagree with was when she said they did the best job they could with determining the safe level for the chemical. I don't agree with that statement. I mean, she might be right. It's just not my opinion. My opinion is that they chose an arbitrary number that they knew would be reachable in a short period of time. Because the initial readings were 1.7 parts per million was the initial readings. And, when they asked, when reporters, and you should go online and go to the Charleston Gazette because they really, I didn't read every article that the Gazette did on this story, but they really did a really good job reporting this, and they asked the hard questions. They didn't, throw the governor softballs, and they were asking the right questions, and they did a really good job reporting. And, when they asked, one of the articles I did read, they asked, how was this number arrived at? And they didn't have a good answer. And my opinion is that the government was losing a lot of tax money, and they just wanted to get these reopened because all these businesses were ordered to close because of the state of emergency. And I think they just kind of randomly picked a number that they knew. They saw that the amount was decreasing, and of course, as the chemical still goes downstream, things are going to get better. I just think they kind of randomly picked 1 part per million because there isn't any research, and and it was the CDC that did it, and I don't know how they did it, but they weren't willing to say exactly how they did it either. So to me, it was kind of arbitrary and had to do with getting the tax dollars flowing again. It's interesting. I had a real concern when I went into work on Monday. The ban still had not been lifted, and I was curious as to how things were going to be operating. The Charleston Health Department actually did, I think, a really good job with handling the crisis and making sure that restaurants that were allowed to open before the ban lifted, that they were doing a good job. And they were able to open Sunday evening, the Sunday evening after the ban began on Thursday, by coming up with their plan and demonstrating how it would be implemented to the health department, and then they were granted a provisionary license to operate until the ban was lifted. And that included, bringing in clean water from another source for everything. We weren't allowed to use tap water to wash the dishes or even the floors. They had to demonstrate that they had enough water to operate. They altered the menu so that the things on the menu that they were offering created the smallest amount of pots and pans to clean, things like that. So it was deep fried food and stuff that was cooked on the flat top or the grill, rather than like a lot of the things that we offer might be cooked in a saute pan. You saute it, and then the pan goes to the dishwasher and comes back again. So that's something that would consume a lot more water, so those things would be taken off the menu. They were serving on paper plates, and plastic silverware was being used to conserve water. Now, obviously, this is generating more waste, but it was conserving water. And, in order to be safe, more waste was generated. But the amounts of waste and things now, and Charleston does not have a good recycling program set up. So people are having to save all their bottles and do not have curbside recycling. So that's a big issue too right now in Charleston is the drastic increase in bottled water consumption and the amount of waste that's being created, and
Right, because there's no curbside recycling, so all these plastic bottles are going to the dump.
Yep, and a lot of people, people are very inconvenienced by this, and they're not in the habit of recycling anyway, because it's an inconvenience. And even maybe people who were in the habit of recycling, they probably still do it, but it's just a greater inconvenience now because we have other inconveniences to deal with. So, that is just kind of a compounding factor for the inconvenience level of this for everyone. Yeah, they have a cistern that is installed now that has basically tap water from other sources. So we're bringing in a few different grades of water, and bottled water for cooking and serving the guests, now we are back to using the tap water for washing dishes, cleaning the restaurant. We do still offer. We set up one of the other things that had to be set up in order to get the provisional license to be in business were hand washing stations, both for employees and for guests in the public restrooms, and that's something that we've kept going. Is the hand washing station, so that if guests do not want to use the tap water for washing their hands, that they have another option.
What does the hand washing station consist of?
Basically it's like a 5-gallon plastic bucket that a little valve faucet has been attached to the bottom, so you've got a little faucet that's going to give you room temperature but clean water to wash your hands with. And then they perch that up over the sink. So you've got two water sources into the sink, the tap and the hand washing station that is a PVC bucket with a little tap attached to it.
How do you feel about the tap water in the restaurant? Are you still using the hand washing station and avoiding the tap water?
Yes, absolutely. I've out of force of habit, one time after using the restroom, this was early on in the ban, without thinking, turned on the faucet and got my hands wet, and I thought, oh no, what am I doing? I don't trust the water. The smell of licorice, which is the telltale odor of this chemical, has, for the most part, gone. But it pops up here and there. Just Wednesday at the restaurant, our owner told the bartender, don't fill the 3-sink system behind the bar because the licorice smell is back. So this chemical is floating around in the system. It's not gone.
Do you think there's a chance that it's still leaking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, anything is possible. It could be that well, it did warm up. We had a very cold stretch. The river, which rarely freezes, in fact, I don't ever remember seeing any ice in the Kanawha River near Charleston the last 2 winters that we were there. It froze almost entirely over. We had a stretch of greater than a week where the lows were in single digits and highs were in the 20s, so well below freezing for a week straight, which is pretty unusual for Charleston. It typically, usually 20 is pretty cold, and it's usually, going above and below freezing pretty regularly, and not down into the single digits. So that chemical, and that was around the time of the chemical spill too. So the chemical spill, I think the temperatures were a little warmer at the time of the chemical spill, which allowed the chemical to flow into the ground, and the cold snap happened shortly after. So I think that locked a lot of the chemical in place. Then it did warm up a bit this week and get above freezing, which could potentially be releasing that chemical that was frozen into the ground, into the river again, and then thus back into the water system. So yeah, and there's a lot of speculation.